Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Devi Shakti Mataji, whenever you're ready, you can start Mataji with prayers.
Hare Krishna to all the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Anaisake. Continuing in the chapter, the appearance of Sukadev Goswami, text 13. The fortunate king said, "Indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally, you, sages, consider royalty as refused to be rejected and left in a distant place." Text 14. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, have graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. Due to my being too much attached to family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world. Text 15. O Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. Text 16. Again, offering obeisances unto all you Brahmanas, I pray that if I should again take my birth in the material world, I have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relations with all living beings. Text 17. In perfect self-control, Maharaj Parikshit sat down in a seat of straw, with straw roots facing the east, placed on the southern bank of the Ganges, and he himself faced the north. Just previously, he had given charge of his kingdom over to his son. Text 18. Thus the king, Maharaj Parikshit, sat to fast until death. All the demigods of the higher planets praised the king's action, and in pleasure continually scattered flowers over the earth and beat celestial drums. Text 19. All the great sages who were assembled there also praised the decision of Maharaj Parikshit, and they expressed their approval by saying, "Very good." Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to common men, for they have all the qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parikshit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows. Text 20. The sages said, "O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty who are strictly in the line of Lord Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the personality of Godhead." Text 21. We shall all wait here until the foremost devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit, returns to the supreme planet, which is completely free from all mundane contamination and all kinds of lamentation. Text 22. All that was spoken by the great sages was very sweet to hear, full of meaning and appropriately presented as perfectly true. So after hearing them, Maharaj Parikshit desired to hear of the activities of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, congratulated the great sages. Text 23. The king said, O great sages, you have all very kindly assembled here, having come from all parts of the universe. You are all good as supreme knowledge personified, who resides in the planet above the three worlds, Satyaloka. Consequently, you are naturally inclined to do good to others. But for this, you have no interest, either in this life or in the next. Text 24. O trustworthy Brahmanas, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically of those who are just about to die. Text 25. At that moment, there appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva, who traveled over the earth disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children and dressed as if others had neglected him. Text 26. This son of Vyasadeva was only 16 years old. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and the other parts of his body were all delicately formed. His eyes were beautifully wide, and his nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mate. Yeah, when you're ready, you can start, Mate. Vrinda Kumari Mate.
Thank you. Let's start with the prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Taksuvandritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaprasthaya Bhutale Srimate Radhanathamiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaprasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyatarane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. So we are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 19. And in the chapter from beginning, we saw that from verse 1 to 12, we saw that King Parikshit is actually regretting his act of disrespecting the sage. So he's expecting a difficulty in near future. He is not just expecting it, he is actually desiring for it, because he knew that if he had to overcome the sin he had committed, he had to undergo some difficulties or punishment. So he was realized, so he had all this knowledge. So we can learn from this that why do we suffer in life and what should be our attitude when we face it. When we undergo any difficulties or sufferings, we should understand that this is the punishment as per the law of nature. And if we have committed any sin, if we keep committing knowingly or unknowingly, then this is the only way to come out of it. So it's all arranged and designed by Krishna. So we can look at our difficulties from a spiritual point of view, rather than lamenting or crying for it, or cursing oneself or holding the Lord as responsible for our difficulties, because many times people do that. We have seen that, right? They think that it's not fair with me, and why others are all happy and why I'm suffering, but it's all because of us and no one else is responsible for it. So the scene is Maharaj Parikshit goes to the bank of Ganges and completely meditating on Krishna, trying to be Krishna conscious, and there are many people surrounded by him, like sages, demigods, kings are there. So the king received them all very well, and with folded hands, he actually mentioned that he was planning to fast until the death. So from verse 13, we will look into it. So verse 13, king is showing gratitude towards the sages who generally refuse the royalty and they stay away from it. So it's a very beautiful purport actually given by Srila Prabhupada. And there are a few points which we can learn from the purport. Srila Prabhupada compares the association of too much materialistic people to the stool, urine, or wash water, etc., which traditionally actually is kept outside the house. So if you have seen the olden houses, the bathrooms, toilets are all outside the house. But nowadays, due to modern civilization and all, we have attached bathrooms, which is considered to be convenient. But Srila Prabhupada says that they are ordered to be situated at a distance from residential quarters. So the association of materialistic people is compared to such things. It is mentioned about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is mentioned in the purport that he says it is worse than suicide to be in intimate touch with wealthy people. He himself had rejected the association of King Pratap Rudra, right? So although he was a devotee and a realized soul, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept his association, and because he wanted to set an example of a renounced order, how they should be away from materialistic people. So because the realized souls know that this materialistic life is just a reflection and it's not the reality, so they are not much attracted to it. That's what is mentioned here. Second point we can learn from this is, which is mentioned in the purport, that it was all Krishna's plan and it was all his arrangement to call King Parikshit back home. And this was not happening because of the curse that was given by that immature boy. So we can learn that everything in this world happens because of the mercy or the plan or the arrangement of the Lord. So he knows the bigger picture. So even when we are not able to understand few things that are happening in our life, Krishna knows what is best for us. So we need to have faith and accept it as his plan. Third point is King Parikshit was feeling grateful for the association of the sages who had assembled there because of the devotional service rendered by his forefathers, grandfathers, because he is the descendant of Pandavas. So it is mentioned that he was feeling proud, but this pride is completely different from the pride of materialistic people, which people have for their prosperity and all. That is what is mentioned by Prabhupada. So it's not same as that when people feel puffed up due to their wealth, etc. Because King Parikshit pride is the reality, and the other pride is false and vain. So these are some of the points that we can learn from this purport of this book. So verse 14, King Parikshit is again feeling grateful to the Lord for saving him from the attachment of family life. It's mentioned that he's coming to rescue him in the form of a curse of a Brahman boy, and it is actually helping him to get detached from the world. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that King Parikshit, although he was a great devotee, he still found the element of mundane family life to be very strong, and so he had to be detached by the plan of the Lord. So what to speak of us, right? Yeah, if we can find it so strong, although if he can, if King Parikshit can find it so strong, although being such a great devotee, we should understand it is so strong on us and how much effort we need to make to detach ourselves from it. It also shows how Lord takes special action in case of special devotee. So King Parikshit sees the presence of the Lord in the presence of his devotees, who are the sages who had gathered there, because the Lord always resides with his devotees. So this is about verse 14, because the purpose given by Prabhupada. Verse 15, King Parikshit had surrendered to the lotus feet of, he has completely surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and he is fearless of death. So his only desire is to sing the deeds of the Lord. So it shows how a devotee of the Lord becomes fearless when he surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord, because everything was arranged well by the Lord, and there were devotees of the Lord surrounded by him, and he had completely surrendered at lotus feet. So it made him fearless of death. So Srila Prabhupada says in one of his purpose, even in the Krishna book, he mentions that a devotee is never afraid of death or of changing his body, even if he does not go back to Godhead. So even if he transmigrates to another material body, he has nothing to fear. Because Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, right, that my devotee never perishes. So, like, for example, we have the example of Maharaj Bharat. So, although in his next life he became a deer, in the life after that, he became completely free from all material contamination and was elevated to the kingdom of the God. So, even though a devotee slips in one birth, the continuation of his Krishna consciousness further elevates him, and until he goes back to Godhead. So King Parikshit had all this knowledge, and he had completely surrendered. So this is what as per verse 15. And because he had surrendered, he was completely fearless of it. So verse 16, King Parikshit is praying that even if I take birth again in this material world, I will have complete attachment to Lord Krishna, and I want to have association with his devotees and friendly relations with all living beings. So Prabhupada says it shows how a devotee is the perfect living being, because he wants to have a friendly relationship with everyone, and he sees the presence of the Lord in everyone. And so he desires to have association of devotees, because Prabhupada mentions that birds of the same feather flock together, right? So he also wants to have attachment to the Lord. Prabhupada gives example of a good son who behaves in a friendly manner with all his brothers, right? But similarly, devotee of the Lord sees all other living beings in relation to Krishna. So he also tries to get them close to Krishna. So King Parikshit, actually, if you see, he's certainly going back to Godhead, but he was showing the perfect way to be in the material world for us, by saying that I just want to be attached. Even if I take birth again, I want to be attached to the Lord, and I want to have the association of devotees. So he actually he had all this knowledge. So he was showing the perfect way to be in the material world, and it also shows about his humility, like how he was considering even that he may not even go back to Godhead. He might even take birth again in this material world. So it shows his humility, but actually he was destined to go back to Godhead. So verse 17, shows how King Parikshit was getting ready, and he was fully equipped with favorable conditions. It is mentioned that he was at the southern bank of Ganga. Ganga is the wife of the ocean, and he was sitting on the seat of a straw, which was taken out of the earth completely from roots, because it is considered to be sanctified. And if the root is pointed to the east, then it is considered to be auspicious. So, and he had faced north, which is still more favorable for attaining spiritual success. So he had given the charge of administration to his son. So with all this situation, because of all this situation, like he was completely ready for the journey. Because he was at the bank of the Ganga and he was sitting on the seat of this frog, and that had actually taken out completely from the earth and with its root, and that was pointing to the east, and which is considered to be auspicious. And he was facing the north, which is more favorable for tennis people to see. And we had already handed over his administration to his son. So how he shows how he was ready for his further journey. Verse 18. Verse 18 says how King Parikshit was appreciated. He was actually appreciated by the demigods, and in appreciation they were scattering flowers on the earth and beating the celestial drums. So Srila Prabhupada says that there were interplanetary communications going on, and due to that, the news of King Parikshit reached the demigods. So demigods were very happy with his actions, and they always praise the devotees of the Lord on the earth, because there are believers of the Lord, but there are also atheists and non-believers on the earth. So they are especially happy when they see devotees and when they are going back home, back to Godhead. So by the actions of demigods, Lord is also pleased with them. So demigods are not envious; they are non-envious, and they are obedient to the orders of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada says a beautiful sentence here in the end, that there is an invisible chain of complete cooperation between the Lord, the demigods, and the devotee of the Lord on the earth. So this is about verse 18. Verse 19 mentions how sages appreciate King Parikshit by expressing words of appreciation, like very good, because sages serve the Lord by doing good to common people, right, and bringing them closer to Krishna. And they are also empowered by the Lord to do that. So when they see a personality like Maharaj Parikshit advance in devotional service, their pleasure knows no bounds. So they offer all the blessings in their power. So if a devotee is pleasing all of them, such as demigods, sages, and Lord himself, then everything becomes auspicious for a devotee. This is what is given by Srila Prabhupada. So how a devotee must be engaged in pleasing the devotees of the Lord and the Lord himself, so everything becomes auspicious. And so having sages around him was certainly auspicious, and so the curse by Brahmana boy was actually not the curse, but it actually became the blessing for King Parikshit. So this is what is mentioned in verse 19. Verse 20, sages were further appreciating King Parikshit that he could rightly and easily give up his kingdom and hand it over to his son. His son is Janmejaya, because he's in the line of Sri Krishna, and so he could easily do it. So if you see, the Pandavas were never captivated by this glare of materialistic life, right? So even King Yudhishthira, he could easily give up his kingdom to King Parikshit, his grandson, and King Parikshit also could easily give his kingdom to his son without being too much attached to it. So devotees live impartially and are unattached to the objects of this false, illusory, materialistic way of life. Unlike we see nowadays politicians, they consider their temporary posts to be of the highest material gain of life, right? And they stick to it until the last moment of their life. They are, like we see nowadays, politicians, they are still on their posts even in their old age, because they are so much attached to that post and they cannot easily give it up. So Srila Prabhupada also gives the example of Prahlad Maharaj, who is praying to Lord Narasimha, that I'm afraid of this materialistic life, he says. So please call me back to your eternal abode as one of your servitors. So this verse is actually further appreciation of sages to King Parikshit, who could easily give up his kingdom, and he handed it over to his son Jamdeva. Verse 21. So sages are willing to wait until King Parikshit returns to the Lord's abode. That is what is mentioned here. So Prabhupada explains about the Paravyoma, or the spiritual sky, which is full of planets called Vaikunthas. So there are many Vaikunthas and with different names, and Srila Prabhupada has given the names. I'll just read the names of those Vaikuntha planets. He has mentioned that there is Purushottam Loka, there is Achyuta Loka, Trivikrama Loka, Rishikesh Loka, Kleshava Loka, Aniruddha Loka, Madhava Loka, Pradyumna Loka, Sankarshan Lok, Sridhar Lok, Vasudeva Lok, Ayodhya Lok, Dwarka Lok, and there are many millions of other spiritual lokas where personality of Godhead predominates, and all the living entities are liberated souls. So they have spiritual bodies as good as that of the Lord, but there is no material contamination, everything is spiritual. So amongst all these main Vaikuntha lokas, there is also one supreme loka which is called Golok Vrindavan, which is the abode of Lord Sri Krishna and his specific associates. So Maharaj Parikshit was destined to achieve this loka. He is going back to Godhead, to Golok Vrindavan, and sages could foresee that. So they wanted to see him up to the last moment, because they would not be able to see him anymore for such a great devotee of the Lord. So when we have also seen this, right? That a pure devotee of the Lord, when he's about to leave the body, devotees would want to assemble there, because they will not be able to get the association of that devotee anymore once the devotee leaves the body. So, and Srila Prabhupada mentions that there is nothing to lament about it, because that pure devotee is entering into the abode of the Lord. So it's all auspicious. That's why all these disappearance days of our great acharyas are considered to be auspicious, right? And we celebrate them by fasting at least for half a day, similar to their appearance days. So actually, there is nothing to lament about it. It is actually a union time of Krishna and his devotees. So the only sad thing is that we will not be in association of that devotee anymore. So we feel sorry. And because of the association of pure devotee, because the association of pure devotee is very, very rare, similar to the association of Krishna, like Lord. And because it is also seen very rarely. So the pure devotees of the Lord are also seen very rarely. And we will not be in association of that devotee anymore. So sages have realized that, and they decided to remain there till the last moment of King Parikshit. This is about verse 21. 22, King Parikshit, they actually congratulated the sages because of their words, which were very sweet and full of meaning and appropriately presented as perfectly true. And he further desired to hear the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So this is what is mentioned in the translation. There is no purport as such for this verse. So this is all about verse 21. 23. In Parikshit, he praises the sages that you all have assembled here from different parts of the universe, and how naturally they are inclined to do good for others, and they have no interest in this life or the next. So actually, they are compared to the devotees of the Lord from Satyaloka, who are as good as the knowledge personified. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that we have got these all opulences, right, from the Lord, like beauty, wealth, fame, strength, knowledge, renunciation. But we have them in us partially, because we are the part and parcel of the Lord. So Prabhupada says we have them up to the full strength of 78%. So in this material world, they are covered by the material energy. And he gives the example of the sun, how sun is covered by the cloud. So the covered strength of the sun looks dim, right, compared to its original glare. Similarly, our original attributes also look almost extinct. But this is about the human beings on the earth, situated at the beginning of the intermediate world. So there are three planetary systems, right? Lower, intermediate, and upper. And the earth, or the human beings on the earth, are situated at the intermediate world. And the Satyaloka is at the upper world, it is at the topmost. So this cloud of material energy is cleared there in Satyaloka. And so they are Vedas personified. And they are full in knowledge of material as well as transcendental. So they are the desireless devotees, they don't have any desire. But then why they come to this mundane world? Srila Prabhupada mentions because they are full in knowledge, they appear to deliver the fallen soul. So it comes naturally to them. They have nothing to do in this world, but they just here to uplift the fallen souls who are deluded by the material energy, like us. So these sages are compared to the devotees of the Lord from Satyaloka, who are as good as knowledge personified, and they have appeared on the earth to deliver the fallen souls. This is what King Parikshit mentions about sages, and he appreciates them in this verse. So, verse 24. Here in this verse, King Parikshit is asking two questions to sages. First is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And second is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? So Prabhupada says that among these two questions, the second one is very important because everyone is going to die either now or then or later. Right? The duration is immaterial, but the duty is important. So King Parikshit actually asked the same question to Sukadeva Goswami when he comes to the same later. And the entire Srimad Bhagavatam from Canto 2 to Canto 12, they deal with these two questions. And what is the conclusion? Krishna himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita, right, as devotional service. So Prabhupada says that it is not that King Parikshit did not know this. He was completely aware of this, but he just wanted to be more convinced by the verdict of the sages, and so he can be more confident and confirmed without any controversy. So there are many processes for self-realization, but the first class process is to give up everything and surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. So one can be free from all sinful reactions. So this is the verse where King Parikshit is asking two questions to sages. And the second one, which he asks that what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly, is very important. Verse 25. Verse 25 explains how, by the providence of the Lord, Sukadeva Goswami, who is the son of Vasudeva, actually appears on the scene, who had traveled the earth and who are satisfied with himself because he was not interested in the affairs of the material world. So Srila Prabhupada explains that his qualities, Srila Prabhupada mentions about his qualities further, that he had not accepted any formal spiritual master, or he had not undergone any formal reformatory process. His father was naturally his spiritual master because he had heard Srimad Bhagavatam from him, and he was already in the stage of complete liberation because of his father. So, Prabhupada further mentions that as a young boy, he was not even dressed properly, and people had surrounded him, taking him as a madman because he was almost naked. So he actually appeared on the scene, which was the providence by the Lord. Because when King Parikshit had asked these two questions, the sages were not anonymous in their response. That's what is mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. They were not anonymous in their response as to what was to be done when King Parikshit asked the question. So in this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary mentioned that The sages were not in agreement about the various processes. Like there are many processes, right? Sacrifice, yoga, charity, austerity. So because they were not in agreement, they desired for the appearance of Shukadeva Goswami in their minds. And they were glancing at the path, and that's when Shukadeva Goswami arrived. And that is what is given by Sulavisana Chakravarti. So Prabhupada gives the example of doctors, how they differ and give different systems. So do the sages. They were giving different processes. And that's when Shukadeva Goswami appears. Now, who would answer the questions asked by insights? So this is about verse 25. 26. 26 actually is a description of Shukadeva Goswami. He was just 16 years old. And Prabhupada says that a person can be older by experience and not by age. So if a person has good experience and he has good knowledge, then he can be considered as older. And now, not just age is not the only consideration to consider him as older. So see, Shukadeva Goswami was, by his knowledge, he had the knowledge and he was more experienced than the sages who were present there. So although he was just 16 years old. So it shows seniority can be maintained as per one's experience and knowledge. And then about his bodily features, this description is given like, and it starts with the legs because a respectable personality is described beginning with the legs. And how his legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and other parts were all delicately formed. Eyes were wide, and nose and ears were highly raised. So he had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. So this is all about the description of Shukadeva Goswami, how he looked, how beautiful he looked, and he was present there by the providence of the Lord to give the answers of King Parikshit. Although he was just 16 years old, because he was completely realized and he had complete knowledge. He was more experienced than the sages who were present there. So this is all about all these verses from 13 to 36. So I will stop here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to serve you all. I'm looking forward to serve you all again. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Yeah, let's offer obeisances. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Our obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kupasindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna,
Thank you, Mataji. Nice class,
Thank
Mataji.
you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.